What's up and good morning, guys. Welcome back to another video. This is part 3 of the, we're just gonna call it the overbuilt carport project at this point. In this section behind me, we're gonna be installing a VersaTube carport, but instead of just putting standard piers in the ground, little holes underneath each anchor, we're building this essentially like a garage. We've got concrete stem walls all the way around, footings, and then 24-inch piers every spot that there's going to be an anchor point. If you guys want to go back in the last couple of videos, you can see us getting this all graded out, setting the forms, and then our first concrete pour, which we'll call somewhat successful because we were just way short on the amount of concrete we needed. So all we ended up doing was getting the footings poured, and then we jabbed in some vertical pieces of rebar so that now when we come back with the appropriate amount of concrete and do all the stem walls, they're going to be tied together to the footings. We've got 2 more pallets of concrete. Abel and Shav are getting them mixed up. We are going to start pouring, and then this is now the finished portion of the concrete work. This is the stuff that you're gonna see. You'll notice these stem walls are about, let's see, it's a 2x12 plus a 2x6, so roughly 18 inches tall. Let's do the más chico. So they're roughly 18 inches tall, but we are going to bring in some fill in the center, and we'll probably have these stem walls to where they are about 6 inches tall. And the reason we did that is because, well, we are on a slope. This part of our yard slopes that way, and it slopes that way. Well, we want a pretty level pad for the carport to sit on. Obviously, the inside area needs to slope out, so if any water gets in there, it goes and drains out. But the stem walls need to be level. So we dug into the ground over here to try to minimize the amount of dirt we needed to add over there, and we were able to basically achieve level. So we're about 6 to 8 inches below grade here. We're also doing this curb in the back because, again, we are below ground and we don't want water and dirt and stuff to just race in here anytime we get a bunch of rain. All right, now we are all caught up. We're gonna jump on, we're gonna start pouring these curbs. Bien, papi. We want to make sure that there are no air bubbles in this. So if you're doing smaller curbs, you know, hitting it with a hammer is usually good enough. You just tap all your forms with a hammer. You can see how the concrete is kind of settling. And if you look really close, you'll notice the air bubbles starting to come out. What an air bubble is going to do is if you have a big air bubble, you strip these forms, you're going to end up with a big hole somewhere in the concrete, or a bunch of holes everywhere. And we don't want that. Stop, puppy. So another technique we can use is we can vibrate it. And we do have concrete specific vibrators, but if you're doing a small project like this and you guys don't want to purchase one or rent one, something as simple as a roto hammer or a hammer drill works great. So on these roto hammers, you can put them between drill, hammer drill, which is that setting, or just hammer. So if you're using these to like chip out tile or something, Stop, puppy. So what you can do on this setting is you just put a random bit on there, and you can use this to actually vibrate your forms. You'll see the concrete settling. One thing you want to do before you vibrate those, you want to make sure you get far enough ahead on the concrete, because like if I vibrate this right now, it's just going to keep flowing. So we want to keep filling in ahead of time, then we come back and vibrate. And you always want to leave it a little bit high, because as you vibrate it, it's going to settle, it's going to find little cracks. And as you guys can see, being that Paparano is not here yet, I'm going to have to keep describing things as I keep working because the concrete's not going to stop coming. I'm going to put you guys back up on my 4-head, or 5-head we should call it, and let's get this poured out. Now you can definitely over vibrate it, so you want to be careful and not do that. Take out our tie wire that's holding our rebar in place. Now the concrete's in there, it's going to hold that in. Now we strategically held that top bar off just a little bit. That way when we go to put our concrete anchors in, we're not drilling into the rebar. We're going to use a float. We're going to float the top part. And then once the concrete starts to kind of set up a little bit, we will remove these stakes. And what these are doing is these are basically holding us at our 6 inches. Once the concrete starts to tighten up, we won't need these anymore. We won't have to worry about it spreading open. But we want them out of the way when we go to trowel the top of this. I want to make sure the top of our forms are clean, because that's what we're using as our guide. And remember, concrete shrinks as it dries. So a little bit high is okay. It's gonna tighten up, it's gonna shrink. And if we keep everything clean now, it gets easier as we go down the line and finish the concrete out. And when we go to pull these spreader stakes, there's gonna be probably a little bit of a low spot in the middle, so we'll fill that once we get those pulled. But for now, we try to get as much underneath as we can by jabbing in our float or your trowel or whatever you're using. I always see a lot of guys when they're pouring concrete, they try to push it, right? They try to push it to get it to go where you want. All you really gotta do on something like this is just kind of poke at it. With a shovel, if you're doing something bigger, you use a trowel for something small, and the concrete will kind of go the way it needs to go and kind of flatten itself out somewhat decently versus really trying to drag it and push it. I just changed the camera into super view, which is even wider since we're gonna be working so up close. So I don't know if that's gonna like really fisheye things or if things are gonna look weird, but yeah, if something look wonky, if you start to see my arms looking all kinds of crazy, oh, they do kind of look crazy. But I figured this might be better footage if we've got it super wide. So it might just have a weird fisheye effect on things. Now, so far we are already looking better than we did yesterday in terms of our concrete quantities. We've got, let's see, we've got a full pallet still. They're almost through their first pallet, but that next batch should get us to probably there. And then we'll still have a little bit on that pallet, so I think we're gonna be A-okay. And we can always store the extra in our little tweaker shed that's back over there. Now, I would say once this thing's built, we can do that as well. However, this thing's gonna be jam-packed. Once we put the tractor in there, the trailer in there, and the Mini X if it fits. One thing I didn't take into account when I was parking things in here is we're losing a solid foot. Because I was going off of kind of these lines, but we have a 6-inch stem wall on each side, so that means we are losing a foot of interior width. 6 feet in between the tractor and the trailer if I can hug them really tight to put the Mini X in. Try to make it a little easier for Chava to get down here. Without falling in this hole. Keep up. That's that. Listo, papi. Sí. Ahí está. Oh. Ahí está. Now, on top of the GoPro constantly overheating so far this morning, the mixer keeps shutting off. She's not currently happy with us for some reason. Not sure why. Let's see if we can get her fired up. Okay. Oh. Well, sé, bro. Maybe por ahorita con poquito choke. Maybe. Oh, sí, sácalo todo. ¿De carro? Sí. So Abel was telling a story there. We used to have this little go-kart that we got for free, and we were working on it, trying to start it, and I gave it one good pull, and there's a little bolt sticking out, and I pulled right into it, and it just completely ripped the nail straight up. That was not a fun day. I don't know, we'll have Papa Rhino look at the mixer when he gets here, because that thing's running a little bit rough. But they've already burned through one pallet super quick, so that's good. Let's get pallet number 2 up here for them. Uh-oh, looks like it died again. That's no good. I will say, I wish this Coyote tractor had a push button parking brake. Having to push the brakes in and then literally this lever just holds the brakes down. It's kind of a pain in the butt every time. All right, we are all poured out. Now they're just going around any little spot that kind of dipped a little bit. Oh, he's trying to roll the outsole already. Are you done working? Can't roll the outsole till done working. Now, one thing you gotta remember is these forms gotta come off. So you can either fight them later or you can make your job easier now by coming around with a shovel. We're gonna clean all that concrete that kind of spilled over with the shovel, and we're gonna get that away from the forms. This is hard to do left-handed while holding the camera. That way, when we go to strip them, we don't have this concrete holding the forms in place. Okay, she is tightening up. Abel's going around, taking off all of the stakes that we had on as spreaders. You can see again now she's holding tight. She's not blowing open because the concrete is going off. Papa Rhino's going ahead, and he is going to be troweling the finish on it. We're only going to be putting an edge on one side, which is that front side. Typically, if you were to frame something, the back side, the framing would go over it, the sheething would go over it, and then, you know, your stucco, whatever your finish, would cover that edge. So we're only going to edge this one side, which gives it that little round over that you see there.
Hold on, guys.
Oh.
I'll let you see it. 1/2 inch edger. Keep it flat. Full trial. I need you to burn that. And then
while Papa Rhino finishes up troweling the top of the stem wall, we're gonna put the remaining sacks of concrete. I mean, we almost used that whole second pallet in the tweaker shed. Abel's getting her swept out. We will set this pallet right on up in her. This little thing is pretty awesome. It was a pain in the butt to get out here, but this is nice for keeping stuff like this out of the rain. Alrighty, there we go. Easy as that. All right, maybe that super view is kind of weird. It's pretty wide. I'm gonna go back to the regular view. Okay, that probably looks a little bit better for you guys. So the curb is all done. It is all nice and troweled. Walk you guys around the back. You can see I've already brought the equipment up here because I'm like a child and I cannot wait. Looking nice and good, beautiful, straight, just the way we want it. Obviously the Mini X, everything can come back a little bit further. Once we grade this up again, the roof hangs out 2 feet behind, we believe. So I'll back the tractor up further. The Gannon will just kind of be above the curb and it'll be covered up by that 2 feet of roof. But I wanted to see if now losing that 6 inches per side, if we're gonna be able to get the trailer in. And as it currently sits, it's gonna be kind of sketchy. It definitely will not be fun pulling in and out if it fits. I think it will. It's gonna be really close. I also can scoot the tractor over a little bit, but coming in, since we have that kicker right there, I didn't want to hit that, so I just kind of stayed away. But I've got another probably solid foot at least that I can comfortably scoot the tractor over. Now, mind you, I really didn't anticipate getting all three things under this 24 by 22 foot Versatube carport, but I think it's actually gonna work out. So we're pretty much done for the day. The guys are up cleaning the new entrance project because that's just become an overgrown mess. So we're gonna take advantage of it being not super hot right now, finish that up. And then I've moved all of the carport pieces down there. Tomorrow we're gonna start assembling the roof trusses. The guys are gonna strip the forms and we should start getting this building put up tomorrow. I'm excited for that. So we'll jump back on in the morning. Alrighty guys, it is officially the day of the forms getting stripped and our first look at the concrete. And I gotta say, I'm not super stoked on how it turned out. You know, we vibrated it both sides pretty well, but it looks like we should have hit it a little bit more. See, it's not perfectly smooth. This is like, I didn't want to over vibrate it, but also when you're mixing with the sacks versus coming out of a truck, the sacks are a lot grittier and a lot sandier. Regardless though, it's not the end of the world. Top looks great. Depending on what we end up doing, we'll probably end up stuccoing down the sides. I was trying to avoid doing that. It's the reason I didn't go block. Everybody said I should just do block stem walls. The reason I didn't want to do that is because block by itself to me doesn't look that great. I had like a finish over top of it, so at that point we would have had to stucco, but here, yeah, not real too stoked on how this is looking. Good news is there's no giant voids in it, so it's structurally sound. It's just aesthetically, it's not as nice as I would have liked it. Let me interject real quick. I totally forgot to mention this on video, but after filming, I had talked to Abel and I hadn't really looked at the backside of the form, but all of the cream, which is basically when you're vibrating it, the cream's kind of settling and that's what gives you a nice smooth finish on the inside, had actually stuck to the forms. So we didn't oil them. Typically for something like that, we don't oil them because we never really run into an issue, but every piece of wood is different. Some's gonna grab it more than others. And because we didn't oil that wood, that is why it looks like it looked. So I vibrated it plenty. It's just that the creamy part that gives it the nice smooth finish actually stuck to the forms, and when they removed the forms, it came with it. Is what it is, we'll survive. Now we're gonna jump on assembling the roof trusses. We've got the driveway all cleared out. I'm actually gonna pull the mini truck out. Abel just parked it right here with all the tools in the back. And speaking of tools, look what has made a return to Rhino Ranch. Where the heck did I put it? It's probably in the golf cart. Okay, it's not in the golf cart, sitting over here on the 110. We've got my Hercules Impact and all the Hercules tools. They've made their way back out here. They've been at my shop for a while. One thing I didn't notice, I've got the batteries getting charged back up, is on this dual port charger, it actually has dual USB ports as well. So that's pretty cool. If you have this sitting in your shop or on a toolbox, you can also plug in a phone charger. Never noticed that on this thing. We're gonna use the 2.5 amp hour while the 5 amp hour finishes charging. It's gonna be my first time erecting any type of steel building or anything like that. I'm not a big self-tapping screw fan, so this should get a little bit interesting. Okay, we've pretty much got all of the panels that are gonna be per roof truss or sidewalls and roof truss put together other than the cross brace. We haven't screwed anything in. They tell you you can adjust to the width desired, right? So this is a 24-foot carport, but does that actually mean 24 foot wide? I'm not sure. And the way you adjust it is you can kind of just open up these joints a little bit and kind of cheat. They're a little tight right now. Here, let's do it on this one. This one doesn't have any weight on it. So you can kind of adjust these joints a little bit to where you want. If they are all tight, it is 23 foot 10 inches across. Now, the question I have, and you would think they'd put it into the directions, is what dimensions do we actually need for the roof to work? Because if I put this thing to 24 foot wide, but the pre-cut roof sections are meant for this thing to be 23 foot 10, we're gonna run into an issue. We're not gonna have any overhang on the sides. I feel like that is something that should be in the directions. Hey, it needs to be a 24 foot carport, needs to be this exact dimension wide. Now you know you're good, your roof's gonna work. But instead it just says, set the frame width to the desired width. I want 24 feet, so I guess we're gonna cheat it out to 24 feet. Now, 3 of the pieces get truss bracing. Apparently the front one and the rear one do not, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. I don't know why they wouldn't just do it on all of them, but we're now putting the truss brace in. They tell you to measure. Go to the instructions real quick. Just a couple of my little annoyances with this setup here. So I'm gonna go to the different style truss brace, right? This is for a 20-foot wide one, but they'll give you as much as 49 7/16, and it says you measure from the corner of these eave brackets. So the eave corner bracket, you measure from the corner. Now, if you come over here in real life and we measure from the corner, now is that to there on the high side, or is that to there on the low side? Because if you measure in the corner, we come over straight. Do we need to be there, or do we need to be there? Now, we are probably way overthinking something like this. I bet these guys that assemble these for a living just come slap these together, eyeball 99% of it, and it just works because it's not a whole lot to it. You can probably fudge as many things as you want to fudge on it. But if you're gonna go as far as to have a measurement to 7/16, we think you'd have exactly where you want that pulled from and going to.
To that. And then we just make them both even.
Yeah, well, let's just make sure we're gonna hold me right on that corner. Good.
Yeah.
18 and a half. 18 and a half. I mean, I think that's well within spec for a carport.
Nothing else is going on it, so.
Yeah. Now I'm using the Hercules on, I don't know, I'm assuming A is for auto. On like the Milwaukees, that actually is like a little self-tapper drawing there. So you got your 3 speeds plus self-tapper, and you can see that it shuts itself off when it feels a lot of resistance. That's to keep from stripping self-tappers out. Now we're going into some decently thick sidewall stuff. So I've noticed that sometimes when it gets its first bite, it'll shut off. I could probably throttle it. There you go. If I wasn't pushing as hard and in a rush, it wouldn't do it. It would only shut off at the end. So you can use that setting or not. I'm just leaving it on now, so if somebody else grabs this thing, they don't end up stripping out any of these self-tappers, because we know once you do that, you're kind of in trouble. There are a ton of screws in these things, and I mean a ton. Let's open this one up a little bit. Oh. Easy guy, too much. End of our thing there, take her back a little bit. Right, a little bit more. Right there, looking good. Hold that down with the dude. I swear I'm too OCD for things like this. Now somebody mentioned it in my last video, how it's gotta suck doing work like this with no music or anything playing because of the YouTube copyright strikes, and you are absolutely correct. It's one of the worst things about filming things for YouTube. Either every time you want to talk, you gotta kick the music off, do your little talking segment, and then go back to like a time lapse, which gets really annoying of having to keep cutting music on and off, or you do what I'm doing right now and just you listen to nothing. I guess I could put my AirPods on, but having Papa Rhino here, kind of gotta hear and talk to each other. We're pretty centered up on this piece, I believe so. How many screws does he get? He gets 6 per. And in case you want to know my level of OCD, I definitely thought about making a template so that these screws are all in the same place every time we do 4, but I decided I gotta slap myself on the wrist and not do that. Just put the damn thing together. And once we have this first one done, we just lay the second one over top of it. All of our measuring's kind of done at that point, and it should go quicker. All right, now for this booger. It'll just sit on one side. I guess it has to. I believe we are 21 foot from side to side. So we need to be 10 foot 6 to center. If I can hook this properly. 10 foot 6. And that needs to be center of that booger, which I think we can get away with eyeballing. Oh, so much for that. Now, if anybody knows any engineers over at GoPro, do me a favor and kick them in the junk for making a junk camera so it just keeps overheating. I mean, we're in the shade, it's breezy, it's not that hot today. And this dang camera just keeps overheating. And they have yet to fix any of the camera issues over the years. They overheat, they freeze, they're just garbage. The only reason I use them is because I can throw them in my pocket and beat them up all day, and I'm not destroying $2,000 or $3,000 cameras like I used to. So we're looking pretty square there. It's not exactly on the center, though, where I would like it to be, but I guess we can measure up this way. Maybe get us somewhat of an idea of center. Let's see what 3 feet looks like on this side. And 3 feet. Sounds like a good number. Oh no, we are off. Alright, let's go to 35 1/4. We're doing absolutely zero math right now. Wait, am I an idiot? That just totally made no sense. 35 3/4. Where does that put us at? That's pretty close. 35 3/4. We'll shave a 16th there, a fat 16th. We'll just eyeball that as center, which would mean somewhere around there, a little bit higher, a little bit higher. If we shift that over to kind of meet that. Now again, this probably means nothing, and most guys would just go along with their life and screw it in, but my OCD doesn't like that. See how we're looking over here? Yeah, we're significantly off. I'm just gonna cheat the difference. We're gonna call it right there. And the GoPro has shut off again. Okay, looking pretty good there. All right, y'all, so
we'll figure it out. Gosh dang. Okay, everyone, we got it.
So if you notice in the time lapse, we pulled this thing apart because we realized we had 2 different size little leg extensions down there, and we're like, oh shoot, something's off, we better reevaluate. So we looked at the parts list. Your rafter extension is a, where are we at, 24 feet, is a 29 3/4 inch piece. Well, we had flip-flopped that with the 2 foot height extension, which is a 28 3/4 piece. Because God forbid we make them both the same. Like, what's the difference? We should probably just make them all the same so you're not having this issue. Well, with the 28 3/4 pieces, we were able to get a 24-foot overall width. But remember, we had to cheat it out a little bit. So we were thinking, all right, well, that's why we had to cheat it, because we used the shorter pieces. So we took the 29 3/4, which are the ones that we were supposed to be using, and we were not. And we're like, all right, well, we have to undo a lot of crap to this first one that we had done. Well, let's swap them out, and that'll give us our 24. We swap them out, well, now we're at 24 foot 1 inch, which is too big. And again, I'm really worried that we make this thing too big and the pre-cut metal for the roof is off or something gets weird there. We end up with like a tiny little overhang versus the overhang that we're supposed to have, because I've never done this. I don't know what kind of tolerances we have, and it's not like we can just easily go pull a piece of roofing out there and like set it here. That corrugated, you know, in a 10 foot, 12 foot, 16 foot, whatever panel that is over there. It's not gonna be fun to try and mess around with. So we think we're gonna flip flop though. I'd rather be at 24 feet because number one, that's where our stem walls are. We need to be at 24 feet. So basically we just did all this for nothing, because God forbid you put on this set of damn plans or instructions what the actual number should be, not just extend it to your desired width. Like, that just doesn't make sense. There's a right width and there's a wrong width. Like, give us the right width. So VersaTube, I'm almost as angry at you guys as I am the GoPro guy right now. Ridiculous. Give us some damn numbers. But God forbid, when it comes to the roof purlins, they can give me 32 and 11/16, or we're actually, I think we're this one, 35 and 13/16. We're gonna go down to 13/16. That exact of a measurement, but we can't give an overall measurement of this thing. So now we gotta put all this back together the way we had it originally, re-square everything up, make sure everything's in line. We were making good progress. Now, not so much. So now we are installing the brackets for the roof purlins, and the roof purlins are the pieces, let me see if I can find it. They are these pieces right here that basically tie the entire top section of the frames together, and that is what the metal roofing is going to screw into. Now again, another dimension that they could have given us is how far off the edge do they want that roof purlin. They give you real specific measurements on this page, wait for it, right here. They want you to be 35 and 13/16 from edge to edge on the purlins. Real specific with that 13/16. However, nobody wants to give that dimension right there. What do you want to be off that edge? So we just kind of eyeballed it based on one of these other pages right there. Like, it's just a hair that way from the peak of that 45-degree cut that they put in this little bracket. So that's what we did over here. We went just a hair over that away, so we're kind of overlapping it, and then from there we're pulling our 35 and 13/16 or 35 and 3/4 fat. That's right there. Now that we have our first ones on, we are transferring the layout to all of them. That way all of the purlin brackets hit in the same spot. We aren't going to screw them on right now because we'd have to move each panel to screw them on. So what we're going to do in the morning when we go to set these in place is we are going to... Yeah. Right there. Mm-hmm. So in the morning, as we are standing these up in place, I'll come back over, screw these in, then we'll stand the next one up and all the way down the line. That way we're not having to move these too many times because they're pretty big, kind of awkward.
Damn. Yeah. Yeah.